in Braves country.
Good morning, everybody. I know we've changed this a few times, but I got basically had to change my work schedule on the fly. And the long story short is we're going to be combining Braves Country today and MLB today onto Thursday mornings right after the football show that comes on Armchair Quarterback Radio that we just finished, 9 a.m., where we talk all the point spreads. And so pop-up shows, if you see MLB today, it's because it is something pertaining to nothing to do with the Atlanta Braves, but it's breaking news in Major League Baseball. Other than that, it's pretty much going to be Braves Country Day. Expect a little bit of both next week. The winter meetings begin on Sunday night, and tonight, if you hadn't gotten the memo yet, we're going to be doing Once Upon a Pastime series, and that's going to be on, and I believe WQVZ is carrying us today as well, along with the football show, so welcome in, along with a couple of other radio stations. They haven't chimed in yet, so I don't want to mention them yet, but the idea was that we're going to be on, I believe, five or six different stations. Jason would have to confirm that. But anyways, we've got some things to talk about today for sure when it comes to not just the Braves, but everybody else. We're going to start off with MLB talk, and then we'll go into the Braves. You've got some interesting things that have happened, and all this really, if you're a Braves fan, you're tuning in, it really does affect you across the board no matter what, because if a guy is signed, obviously he's no longer a target of the Braves, and even if he wasn't originally a target of the Braves, what you're going to be looking at is a situation where teams are going to pivot, and now they may have their eye on someone that you were hoping was going to be an Atlanta Brave. So that's where we're at, and we had a couple of big moves that have been made a couple of days ago, and we've had slow, steady stuff that has been coming in, but there hasn't been the really big signing outside of Dylan Cease, who signed a 7-year, $210 million deal. I don't think he's going to be the top dollar get this offseason, but he's going to be damn near close. This is not a rich crop of free agents like we've seen in the past couple of years. The biggest difference that I'm looking at with this is these teams that are making moves and the players that are making moves, they want to make sure that, especially the player side, they want to make sure that they are locked up and locked down into going into next offseason, because next offseason is going to be a nightmare for everybody involved, because unless they come up with something in the very near future, we're going to have a lockout / strike, whatever the hell you want to call it. It's going to be a work stoppage. And we don't know if we're actually going to miss games, if it's going to be like it was in 2021, where they came off and eventually agreed just in time to be able to squeeze in all the games. And they had a couple of doubleheaders, and they also extended the season by a few days, and all 162 got played. I'm not as optimistic about next offseason, because the owners want a salary cap, the players don't. And this may be where the owners actually dig in and say, I don't really care anymore what you're saying. We're going to get a salary cap, and the players are going to push back and say, I don't care what the hell you're saying anymore. We're not getting a salary cap, and away we go. And so any way you look at it, someone's going to have to give on both ends. Now, what we got with Dylan Cease, I know Braves fans had him in their radar because he's from the area. I think it's a bullet dodge, guys. I don't think Dylan Cease is the end-all that beats all. I don't think he is anywhere close to the money that they're paying him. And maybe it's because I'm looking at this from an Atlanta Braves perspective, where we don't pay guys this much, $30 million a year, and a guy who's going to be well into his 30s by the time this contract ends. His 7-year, $210, that's just shy of what Max Fried signed. So I knew he was not going to be an option for us. Good to see folks in the chat. I see Tree. I see John. I see B.A., Charlie. I think I've gotten you all so far. I know folks will probably be trickling in. I'm assuming Pete is okay. I haven't seen her in a few shows, but, God forbid somebody have a life. But the other big move that was made a couple of days ago was Devin Williams being signed away from the Yankees to the New York Mets. He's a right-handed reliever who until last year was one of the best relievers in the game. But remember, he was coming off of injury. Any way you slice it, it's a very questionable signing by the Mets. Because if you're saying, well, the injury took its toll, okay, is he going to be ready for this year? Is he going to be back to normal? Or B, if you say, well, he's so used to pitching in Milwaukee coming up that maybe the bright lights in the big city in New York City, some guys just don't have it in them. Well, hell, he's in New York still. So either way, I don't love the move by the Mets. I still think they want him as a setup man, and they want to re-sign Edwin Diaz as their closer. But Devin Williams wasn't good in the 8th inning either. The only inning that he really thrived for the Yankees this year was the 7th. You're not paying a 7th inning guy $17 million a year. That is closer money. Now, Diaz is going to be trying to command 20 plus. Remember, he opted out on a deal that was 3 years in with 2 left, and it's a 5-year, $100 million deal, which means he thinks he could get more than 20 a year, and he's going to try to do another long contract, probably 4 years because he's a little longer in the tooth, but he's going to want the whole thing guaranteed. So we'll say 4 years. I don't think 100, but let's say it's 4 years, 85, 87, maybe 90. And you're the Mets, and you're going to put that much money in your 8th and 9th inning. Man, they better pay dividends. They're both right-handers, so it's not like you are going to mix and match. Diaz would be your closer. But the jury's still out for me on Devin Williams in New York City in the back end of the bullpen because he didn't show he could do it with the Yankees this year. So that's a huge question mark. The other guy that got signed a couple of days ago, Ryan Helsley. I don't know what in the world Baltimore's thinking, but it's a 2-year, $28 million deal, so $14 per year. It's not that Helsley couldn't end up being a good closer because I think they brought him into New York as a setup man at the trade deadline, and I just don't think he does well in that spot. But there are also a lot of metrics that have shown that Ryan Helsley, his fastball was getting clobbered the second half of the season. Now, that couldn't happen to a better guy because if y'all remember, Ryan Helsley is the chump that was the St. Louis Cardinal that said his feelings got hurt because the Braves are doing the tomahawk chop. This is back in 2019 in the playoffs, and they took the tomahawks out of the stadium, Game 5 versus St. Louis, and the Braves complete dud of a first inning. There was no life in that stadium. I still put 1,000% of that not on Helsley, but on the Braves front office, because you coward is what you did. You didn't want to stand by who the Braves have been for years. And when we came up with this station in 2021 and going with the station name, I purposely used Braves Country because when I think of Braves Country, I think of the chop. And I purposely, when we first started doing the first clip that we did, in-game clip, was the tomahawk chop. Now, obviously, we've expanded and it's gotten out of control, and you can make an argument that I've gone off the rails with it. But I enjoy the sounds because I think it makes it sound like you're at an authentic type of atmosphere and it's not something that I plan on getting rid of. But that's the reason why I went, and one of the main reasons why I went with it is because the Braves organization pissed me off when they took out. They didn't just take out those tomahawks in the seats that day. They would not pump in any kind of tomahawk chop music. Now, they have done a complete 180 on that. And remember back then they were using the goofy term for the A. I still hate that. I still think it's not on brand with Atlanta Braves baseball. It's something that I think you could sell me on the Falcons or the Hawks, but for the A to me is just, it's got nothing to do with Atlanta Braves baseball. We are Braves country. So I will always be pulling against Ryan Helsley until he does a flat-footed apology and admits that he was manipulative. I'll never pull for Ryan Helsley. But from the baseball side of it, they signed him to this short-term deal at a fairly high mark for a reliever because he wants to transition into a starter. Now, if they pull it off and he's like a Ronaldo Lopez type, then they may have something. But I think it's going to take them 2 years to even get him to that point. And remember, everything was all fun and games with Raylo in the first year of his contract. After that, it's been downhill because of injuries and whatnot. These guys that spend their entire career as a reliever and then they get transitioned into a starter, it rarely works. It rarely works. And that's what Helsley is. He's been a reliever his entire major league career. We'll see what happens. He's still fairly young, but that's going to be a big ask. And the thing is, the guy's fastball is getting clobbered. Okay, maybe during the offseason he's developing a third and fourth pitch, but he was pretty much a two-pitch pitcher as a closer in St. Louis. And I have my doubts if that's going to work out in Baltimore. Serious doubts, and I won't be pulling for him. Sorry, Oriole fans, but I won't be pulling for him. I will never pull for Ryan Helsley. He's a fraud. He's a fraud. Yesterday, I believe the news broke that Emilio Pajan signed a 2-year, $20 million deal with the Reds, staying with the Reds. So that was a big get for them. Remember Raciel Iglesias? I think we've been on air since then, but it's kind of hard for me to remember as this offseason always kind of jumbles together in my head. Raciel Iglesias of the Braves has stayed. So that's been I think that's a very good signing for the Braves, especially because it's only a 1-year deal, so we'll see how he pitches this year. I will expect that, what was the final score of the Cardinals-Sharks game? Tree Nug, I don't know, because in the 7th inning, or maybe it was the 8th inning, they went into a rain delay, and I was not going to put anyone through that. I'll try to look it up by tonight, but I didn't pay attention to it because I'm not doing a rain delay show for folks of y'all that may have missed it. We were doing the only English speaking version that I know anywhere in the world of Ronald Acuna Jr.'s baseball team in Venezuela. They are, in English, the team is called the Sharks. That's the short of it. It's a long name, but they are the Sharks, and they were playing the Cardinals. So Ronald Acuna Jr. hit a home run last night. I think Tree Nug was there for that, but he hit a home run last night. He blasted one over the center field wall. That ball was a rocket. They don't give us the numbers like they do in MLB, but I said last night my guess is somewhere between the 420 to 440 mark. That ball was crushed. And it got out in a hurry. So he hit a home run last night, and last night he was playing against his little brother. Little Acuna was the center fielder, not an infielder, so the Mets may be transitioning him to an outfielder, but we'll see how that plays out. And that very may be why they felt good about trading Brandon Nimmo. If you remember, Brandon Nimmo was traded from New York to Texas, and Texas is bringing in a second baseman in Marcus Semien, and that essentially means Acuna has no spot on the Mets roster unless they transition him to the outfield. And he's playing center field in the Winter League. We all know he's got the speed. Whether or not he can play center field in Major Leagues, no idea. But we'll just see how that plays out. If not, they're going to have to trade him. Because you can't get stuck in the mud using little Acuna as a utility player, which is what the Mets have been doing, because he's such a highly regarded prospect. You either figure out a spot on the roster for him, meaning the outfield, or you trade him. Because you can't let him just sit there, because the longer he sits there, his value is going to go into the pooper. So I found that interesting last night that he was playing center field. We're going to be doing those games on Wednesday nights for people who weren't there last night. I know we popped it up at the last second. The short of it is that's the best night to bring you the game, but that will only be the next 2 weeks, because the final 2 weeks of December, that'll be Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. We're not going to bring you games on those nights. Are you insane? So we're going to bring them to you on the Tuesday nights. So assuming that they play and they don't get rained out and all that stuff, the plan is to broadcast the Sharks, Ronald Acuna's Sharks team, Wednesday, December 10th and Wednesday, December 17th. They usually come on about 5:30, 6 o'clock, all those games down there, Eastern time. And then the 23rd is a Tuesday and the 30th is a Tuesday. After that, they start the Caribbean series where each team's sending one player, or one team, each country is sending one team to represent them. And we will begin that coverage on Friday, January 2nd. They play on the 31st and the 1st. I'm not going to try to compete with the college football playoffs in some winter ball baseball league, right? But the Caribbean series, there ought to be a lot of interest in that. So if you want to get your feet wet going in, we're going to be the next 2 Wednesdays, we're going to be bringing you the games, and then the following 2 Tuesdays. And that'll get you ready for Caribbean series. I believe we'll be carrying it, from what I understand of the way it plays out, Friday, January 2nd through, I believe the championship is Wednesday, January 7th. So that should be a fun weekend here on Braves Country Radio. I don't know if we'll bring you the Sunday game, because if it competes against a big NFL matchup, then what the hell are we doing? And sometimes they take Sundays off as well. But the other games, we'll definitely bring them to you. Back to the free agent talk. Josh Naylor stayed with Seattle, so that's a big deal for Mariner fans. I know we have a ton of them that follow the channel. We also have, let's see, where was it? Here it is. Phil Matone. This was a little interesting to me, because I don't think he's necessarily worth this money, but Matone was signed by the Cubs. Now, he'll be not middle relief. He'll be towards the back end of relief. They'll be trying to use him in the 7th and 8th inning. I don't believe there's any plans to have him anywhere near the 9th. I think he's more likely your 7th inning guy. If he's your 7th inning guy, he's not a bad sign. But you may have overpaid for that. But the Cubs have money, whatever. If you're trying to pigeonhole him into the 8th inning, that may be a stretch. And it may be a situation where if they're facing right-handers, they'll go ahead and throw him in there. But if a left-hander in the middle of the lineup, then he's going to pitch in the 7th, not the 8th. It may be one of those types of things. Not necessarily by committee, but more of who he is facing. Cedric Mullins signed a 1-year deal, $7 million to the Tampa Bay Rays. I actually don't hate this move. I don't hate this move at all. I think it's a very interesting move for the Rays, who are always coupon clipping. But if they can get his bat back to where it was before he went to the Mets, I mean, he just absolutely cratered in New York. He was showing signs of improvement, and then he gets traded to the Mets, and I don't know if it was Bright Lights Big City. I don't know what the hell was going on, but he was just an absolute bust. He goes to Tampa. If it's got anything to do with not wanting to play in front of big crowds, then he'll be fine in Tampa. There's usually like 15 people at the game. Miguel Rojas signs another. It's what it sounds like. This is his last year. He's going to be a utility guy for the Dodgers, 1 year, $5.5 million, and then they're transitioning him into a developmental role. We'll see if he even ends up making the team. I mean, he had a couple of big hits in the postseason, but he's definitely on the decline. Jake Fraley, if you remember him, for the Braves, he was picked up by the Rays. He will stay with the Rays, 1 year, $3 million deal. So the Rays are doing sneaky moves to improve their offense, and they always seem to do this well. Last year didn't pan out as well, but the Rays typically do pretty well with these types of moves. So we keep an eye on that. James McMahon, the catcher for the Arizona Diamondbacks, he is a backup catcher. He will stay with the Diamondbacks, 1 year, $2.75 million. And Ryan Yarbrough will continue to be with the Yankees in a relief role, which time to time they use him as like a swing starter, ex-Tampa Bay Ray, 1 year, $2.5 million. So really like that move by the Yankees. I've always liked Yarbrough. I think he's a sneaky good player. Alek Manoah, if you remember, the Braves did not bring him back. He signed a 1 year, $1.95 million by the Los Angeles Angels. And Sam Hentges from Cleveland to San Francisco, relief pitcher, $1.4 million. What are y'all talking about in the chat about Acuna playing probably? Yeah, that's some folks asked about that in the chat last night. John, the best thing that I can tell you is, and what I didn't like is he continued to play right field in the rain from about the fifth inning to the seventh inning. It started raining very lightly in the fifth inning. It was a damn near downpour in the seventh inning, and they continue to have him out there. That I don't like. I think the Braves need to be watching these damn videos, and they need to get on the horn and go, hey, we send you down there to play. I need to talk to your manager because the first sign of water on the field, they need to pull you. Maybe he needs to go to more of a DH role, but he was playing right field last night. He actually made a couple of really good throws, but I think he's one of these guys that's going to stay in better shape if he's constantly playing baseball. I don't think he's a gym rat, right? There's certain guys that are never going to just go in there and for 4 months in the off season work out, hit the cages, work out, hit the cages, and then give you a good season. Acuna in 2022, in the winter of 2022, did this same thing right after a knee injury, right? Because remember, he was injured in 21. We win the World Series. He comes back in 22, and he was meh. He wasn't quite Acuna, but he was still solid. Tell me this doesn't sound familiar. And then in the winter of 2022, he goes down and plays winter ball, and he says that helped him turn 23 into a MVP season. 40 home runs, 73 stolen bases, and the rest is history. Then we flash forward, 2024, another knee injury. He comes back last year. He was meh. He was good, but he wasn't Acuna. And now he's doing the same thing. He's going into winter ball once again. Because remember, there was no winter ball for him last year because he couldn't really play because he was still coming off the injury. And now he comes into a full off season, assuming that he stays healthy going into spring training. That's the biggest thing that I'm pulling for and watching as I'm watching these games is, do we see any kind of a hiccup? Do we see him favor a knee, anything like that. That does make me nervous to a degree. But the Braves okayed it, and they're okaying it because he's done it in the past, and it's paid dividends. I know that we all want to bubble wrap these guys, and but look, if the guy's knee's going to give out, it could give out in the shower, it could give out in the backyard chasing his kid around. It just is what it is. I would just like to know that he's wearing protective sleeves on his knee as he's out there playing ball, pretty much for the rest of his career. I don't want him going out there with, and I'm not talking about like a big bulky brace. I'm just talking about like the sleeves. They do help a little. I've had some injuries over the years for a number of different things, and I wear knee sleeves on my knees when I take my dogs out for a walk. I know I'm nowhere near what we're talking about with Acuna, but I'm telling you, it helps because the days that I don't wear them, that I go, I'll be all right, the next morning my knee's barking. Now, I'm much older than Acuna. I've never had near the talent that he's ever had. But I'm just saying I would feel better to know that he's doing something. And probably more likely what he should be doing is an actual professional wrap from one of the doctors. I don't love the idea that I'm seeing him out there in right field every night. That's my biggest concern. It's not that he's playing. I don't love the idea that he's in right field every night. If he wants to play right field once out of every 3 or 4 games, okay, it'll keep you in shape and keep the rust off. I get it. But the game last night, that was extremely disappointing to me to see Acuna continue to go back out there in right field with the rain coming down. And I'm not going to be convinced that their stadium drainage is anywhere near as good as a major league park. So that to me is a little bit of it's concerning, but there's not a whole hell lot we can do except for pay attention to it and hope for the best. And I'm hoping somebody gets in somebody's ear and says, why was Acuna in there playing right field in a rainstorm? What the hell's going on here? All right, back to the other stuff that's going on. See, where did I leave off at? See, those guys aren't really of interest per se. Let me see what we have here. Let's see if I've got any more moves that are. I believe that's it as far as major names. Now, as far as what's gone on with the Braves so far, they signed Danny Young a couple of days ago, and they signed Joe Payamps and, of course, Rafael Iglesias. Those are the only major league contracts, and Danny's contract is actually a split along with Payamps. So if they end up in the minor leagues, they won't quite pan out to what I'm telling you. But what I'm going to tell you is that right now they're scheduled for $2.25 million for Payamps and $925,000 for Danny Young. So pretty low on the overall scale. But even with that being said, if y'all remember Danny Young, he's a southpaw that you can bring up out of the minors that you just can't expect much out of. He's a depth piece. If Danny Young is pitching in 40 innings for the Atlanta Braves in 2026, we've got huge problems. It means that some of our guys are on the IR once again, or IL once again. And it also means that you could have guys who just didn't show up. Guys who didn't have this type of season that you expect them to have. But right now, that's all the Braves have done. They've gotten their closer, which is huge. Because had we not signed Rafael Iglesias, we'd still be out here asking, who the hell is closing games for Atlanta next year? And that's a problem going into any season if you don't know who your back end guy is. And don't tell me that it's Dylan Lee or any of that crap. None of them have what Rafael Iglesias have. Not to mention the pedigree that he has as being a closer for the last several years. So I feel great about that, assuming health, that Iglesias is back as our closer. Payamps, I am optimistic about. I just am. He at one point was being looked upon as the closer in waiting in Milwaukee. Then he had some injuries. Now he's fighting back from that. But if he gets anywhere close to where he was pre-injury, Payamps is a solid 7th, 8th inning guy coming out of your pen. And from time to time could close if Iglesias has closed like 3 of the last 4 days. You need to give him a rest. He's another option. Now remember, we've got Joe Jimenez coming back. But remember, he had another setback. And they do believe he's going to be ready for spring training. But they say that a lot about a lot of guys. So I would like to see them be a little more aggressive out on the free agent market, because I'm a little concerned that the Atlanta Braves are going to end up in a situation where they have a bunch of guys that are good seventh inning guys, but not enough 8th inning guys. Other guys that are available, as I pull this up, let me open this thing up correctly. First and foremost, I still say that our number one priority is to get the shortstop Ha-Seong Kim to come back to Atlanta. That's, if you're asking me for a wish list, that's number one on my wish list. Because Bo Bichette, I think, is an unrealistic expectation. I would love to know that Bo Bichette is coming to Atlanta and Mauricio Dubon, in the idea of defense, is coming in to play the late innings, especially we're talking about important games towards the end of the season. And then Dubon across the board could just be a depth piece to give guys like Ozzie Albies a day off, Austin Riley, guys who are constantly getting injured, give them days off, a little bit of rest, a little bit of heal. Give a Bo Bichette the day off. But I'm just as happy if we end up with Ha-Seong Kim because of his defensive ability. He's an elite defender, and he will give you somewhere around 15 to 20 home runs a year if he's in the lineup almost every day. That's nothing to sneeze at. A guy who could be a Gold Glove winner at short, but it could also give you 20 home runs. And think of a guy who would have the pop of when Orlando Arcia had his best offensive year in 23, but a little higher batting average. And that's what I'm looking at from a Ha-Seong Kim. I think the biggest question, the biggest sticking point is someone going to go out there and knock his socks off with a 5-6 year deal? And if so, I don't think the Braves are going to get him, because I think the Braves are going to be stubborn and look for 3 to 4 years. 4 is at the absolute most. I'm okay with giving him 4 years. At 5 years, it gets a little tricky. Is he going to have that same kind of range at the end of his career, at the end of his contract, excuse me? And if so, are you transitioning over to play second because Ozzie Albies is going to leave and you'll slide one of the guys? Remember, we drafted 3 guys in the first 3 rounds at shortstop this year. So shortstop could be a position where we are very deep in a couple of seasons, but I don't think it's going to be this year, because this year you're talking about having kids coming out of college and thinking they're going to compete for a starting position in the Major League Baseball. It's just, it's a little insane. If you look at Iglesias, John, if you look at Iglesias' numbers, he was booty the first couple of months. He was lights out the second half of the season. And I just think he corrected himself, and he was as good as anybody in Major League Baseball from July on. I don't have him in front of me, but I was looking at his stats the other day. He was as good as anybody as a closer from July on. I think we got a bit of a discount because he did have the terrible beginning. But you could also say, well, Is he going to put a full year together? I think he will, because in years past he has. And if we get off to a good start with him closing games out, we're not blowing these games, the Braves may have been in the playoff hunt at the trading deadline to make a move. Some of those just duds that he threw out there really put us behind the 8-ball. It really did. It was disappointing as hell, but hopefully it's behind him. Now, the big name free agents that are out there, Bo Bichette is one of them. But you're talking about guys with qualifying offers attached to them. Kyle Schwarber. Kyle Tucker. Bregman does not have a qualifying offer on him. He is a free agent, but the Braves aren't really in the market for a third baseman, and he's going to ask way too much money. I still think Bregman ends up back in Boston. He's just looking for a long-term deal so that he can finally settle down and stay in Boston. And remember last year when he got the deal, the idea was he was going to do the 1 year, have the player opt out, and go from there because nobody wanted to give him a 4 or 5 year deal. Well, that's what he's looking for in this offseason. So Boston's going to have to pay to keep him, but I do believe they keep him. Kyle Schwarber is a tricky thing because he's got a qualifying offer attached to him. The Braves do need a designated hitter. I've said many times in the past, he is the reason why I would give up a qualifying offer. But this is a strange year because the Braves have a high draft pick, and it would be their second pick, which means it's going to be a pick in the top 10. Are the Braves willing to give that up, second round top 10, to sign Kyle Schwarber? I would, because I like the idea of having a guy 56 home runs, 132 RBI, a walk machine. I know he only bats 240, but when he clubs one, he clubs it. And you're trying to tell me that Kyle Schwarber, who, by the way, if you remember the home run derby, come on now, the end of the All-Star game is what I'm talking about, where they had the swing off and all the stuff that went down with that, and he ended up being one of the heroes. Kyle Schwarber would absolutely feast in Truist Park. He's probably looking for a 4 to 5 year deal. So are you going to be willing to give up, let's just say, a 5-year deal, and let's say you're willing to pay him what he's worth. Let's say we're going to pay him $150 million and lose a draft pick. That's where I think AA is going to balk on it, because as much as he acts like he's aggressive, he's not that aggressive. So they put the qualifying offer to basically protect him because Philly wants to bring him back. It's kind of a hard ask to ask a general manager who's trying to build and sustain a farm system to give up a top draft pick when you just had a really bad year, so you're going to get a high draft pick, right? And pay a boat ton of money. And, oh, by the way, you can't really put him in the outfield. You can't put him at first on any kind of regular basis. He can play over there, but it's not ideal because defensively he's not quite as bad as Ozuna, but he is a bit of a nightmare. He's a little better base runner than Ozuna. So you'll see him actually get to a top speed. Ozuna, the last few years, I know some of them are going to try to say it's because he had the injured hip, et cetera, et cetera. Ozuna wasn't running before then. He runs for him. He is actually giving it his all. But he's a tortoise. He's a slug. Schwarber would be a huge upgrade. If you can imagine this, because if you bring in Schwarber, you're talking about expecting somewhere between 45 to 50 home runs. 40 bare minimum. You bring in Ozuna, you're really shooting for, hopefully he can get back to where he was a couple years ago, but let's be honest, he's on the backside, so let's expect 25 to 30 home runs and a much lower batting average. and nowhere near the ability that once he gets on base, that a double in the gap, he'll probably score. Ozuna, double in the gap, they're going to have everything. The ball's going to have to bounce the right way for him to score. But imagine setting your lineup like this, because this is why I want Kyle Schwarber. Just imagine. First of all, Ronald Acuna Jr., get your ass back off to the leadoff spot. That's what I hope to see from Walt Weiss. I think he's smart enough to know that was stupidity putting him at third in the lineup. So Acuna, let's put you in the leadoff spot. The number 2 spot. And this is where it gets really fun. Jurickson Profar, you do a great job of making contact with the baseball, walking, et cetera, et cetera. A perfect number 2 hitter. He can even drop a bunt, and he's got speed, so he's not clogging up the base paths. Number 3 hitter, Matt Olson. Get back to where you belong, number 3. And if a right-hander's on the mound, your cleanup guy, Kyle Schwarber. You could put Austin Riley there and have Schwarber batting 5th, but I want Schwarber's bat involved as much as I can. And then you put Riley behind him. And then after that, we're talking about a different number of different ways that you could go. If it's a right-handed pitcher, I wouldn't even hate the idea of, on a right-handed pitcher, give me Michael Harris. On a left-handed pitcher, I want him either batting 9th or I don't want him in the lineup. Maybe give him the day off every once in a while and let Dubon play center field. And then you're talking about in the 6th hole, you're talking about you can do the 6-7 either way. Doesn't matter. You can either put Drake Baldwin there right behind Austin Riley, which means Austin Riley's going to get to see better pitches. And then Ozzie Albies. This is with right-handed batters. If it's a left-handed batter, you could either move Ozzie just behind Riley, or what I would probably do is I would put Murphy there. Once he showed me that he's actually hitting the ball well. If not, Sean Murphy needs to bat 8th. I don't want him batting 9th because I don't want him right in front of Acuna clogging up the base paths every time. But batting 8th, I'm fine with. And then, of course, you slide Ha-Seong Kim somewhere around the 6-7 spot and move him back and forth. So that's what I would like to see happen. In a perfect world, I know they would never get both of them, but in a perfect world, Ha-Seong Kim is our starting shortstop. Kyle Schwarber is our designated hitter, and away we go. Other guys that are out there, people have been rumoring this, but Cody Bellinger's not going to be an Atlanta Brave. He's just not. They're going to have to pay him for his defense, and they don't really need his defense. Good to see everybody jumping into the chat, but I don't see it. So scratch Cody Bellinger off your board. People have talked about designated hitter-wise, you go get Pete Alonso. First of all, I just don't like him. I don't like Pete Alonso. Maybe it's the Met thing. I don't know, but I don't want anything to do with him, so I won't even entertain that. If they sign him, we'll learn to love him, but I don't even want to entertain the idea that Pete Alonso could be an Atlanta Brave. Kyle Schwarber is different because he didn't come up as a Philly. He came up as a Cub, went to Boston, ended up in Philadelphia, so he feels more like a hired gun. Pete Alonso was a New York Met from the jump, and it doesn't help the fact the guy is a Gator too. He's got a Gator against him. He's got the Mets against him. Real men don't wear orange and blue. All right. Dylan Cease obviously is off the board. The qualifying offer was declined on Michael King. It's a shame that he got that qualifying offer put on him, because he would have been a great addition to the Braves starting rotation. Yeah, exactly. Throw it again. We still have that clip somewhere that plays during the games. Michael King, to me, would be a great addition. I just don't think they're going to give him what he wants and take the qualifying offer. He's going to be one of those guys that might end up having to take a much shorter deal to get the qualifying offer off of him so he can get free agency again. We've seen it a few years in the past, and he is one of the guys. His contract is going to be why they're going to try like hell in the next CBA to get rid of the qualifying offer. He is a perfect example. The idea that you put a qualifying offer on someone who isn't quite elite, but he wants to get paid like he's elite, and I might be willing to do that, but I am not willing to pay him top dollar and give up one of my draft picks. Ranger Suarez, another guy, qualifying offer rejected. I would love to have Ranger Suarez. I don't think the Braves are going to go out and sign Ranger Suarez because he's going to ask for a decent salary, and you got to give up a damn draft pick. Edwin Diaz, we just signed Iglesias. That's off the table. There's no way in hell they're bringing in Diaz. They're not going to put that kind of money on him. Framber Valdez, he is another one that has the qualifying offer. You'd have to give up the draft pick. But you talk about solidifying the rotation. And a guy that goes out there, and this shouldn't be ignored. That guy goes out there and shoves every single day. He goes out, he goes to the post. That's not nothing when you're talking about having to pay a guy a lot of money. He's durable, and he has been his entire career. Eugenio Suarez is ranked pretty high, but he doesn't really fit for the Braves unless they're going to make him a designated hitter. It's a possibility. He had 49 home runs, 118 RBI, but are you paying for his best season and hoping for the best down the road, or is he willing to take a little bit of a dip in pay? He does not have a qualifying offer on him, so that is interesting. And, of course, Braves fans remember him because he gave up 4 home runs in that fateful night. Grant Holmes on the bump, and why in the hell Brian Snitker kept sending Grant Holmes back out there, I'll never know. Or pitching to him. If you're gonna leave Holmes in the game, walk his ass. Good to see you, Freedom and Tally and Richard Tally, and I think we've gotten the hellos into the other folks in the chat. If I've missed one, shout out to everybody. Congrats, Freedom, for the 5-month membership. Good to see you. We'll be doing these on Thursdays at this time, by the way, y'all. If y'all missed the intro to this, we moved from Fridays to Thursdays because it goes right after the football show that comes on at 9 a.m. on Armchair QB Radio. Then we come over here to Braves Country Radio. And it's a smarter deal to be able to do it all in one. Now, next week's going to be a little different. You want your alerts on. Hit the bell. Make sure you get your alerts on. The winter meetings begin Sunday night. There's usually 1 or 2 really big moves that happens, and the Braves could be involved. Other guys that are out there, Josh Naylor signed a 5-year contract with the Mariners, so he's staying. Trent Grisham accepted the qualifying offer from the Yankees. They're not excited about that because they were hoping that he was going to. The reason why Trent Grisham accepted his qualifying offer is simply this. Nobody was going to pay Trent Grisham $22 million a year. Nobody was going to do it. He had 34 home runs, had 74 RBI, but most people believed it was because he was hitting in front of Aaron Judge all year. Nobody was going to pay him that. Another guy that's an interesting ad, not really on the Braves' radar, but Luis Arraez is a free agent. He does not have a qualifying offer. He's a guy with very little pop, but he gets on base. He hits for a good average. He hit 292 last year. That's actually kind of low for him. But he's typically a spray hitter. I don't hate those. There's just no real place to put him. Unless you're just going to all of a sudden decide that we're going to go punch and Judy slap hitters up and down the lineup. You can't put him at the DH spot. He was at first base last year. He could still play second. He's not unseating Matt Olson or Ozzie Albies. The only way you do that is you're going to say, hey, Matt, we're going to make you a DH. We want to make sure that you age well. I don't think Matt wants to do that. Matt's a Gold Glover, so what the hell? So he's off the board. And the other one that they have mentioned is Ryan Yarborough. So that's kind of in a nutshell where we are on the free agents that are out there. I think that until the Braves address the shortstop, we're not going to get a great deal of movement because that's their number one get. That's why the winter meetings are so important, because they may not be signing Bo Bichette or Hassan Kim. They may make a trade. And there's a couple of guys that are out there, and one of the guys that you could see slide into the shortstop position, though it's not really his spot, would be like a Brendan Donovan. They're saying that basically the St. Louis Cardinals are about to gut their team and build it from the ground up. They're talking about, now here's an interesting guy that I could see the Braves making a move for, because he could slide into the DH role and he had a down year, so you may get a discount on him. Lars Nootbaar. Lars Nootbaar is a power-hitting left-handed bat that can play. Primarily, he's a right fielder. You could have him in left, but he would be a DH that you could basically say you could move back and forth in and out of the outfield with a combination of Acuna, Profar, and then a Nootbaar taking turns at DH, right? You give Acuna some days off. If we are not going to go out and go for the downs and get the guy that I want at Kyle Schwarber, right? Nootbaar's not a bad option. He's a guy that, now look, he had a down year last year, but typically I think in the Braves lineup, especially in that stadium, remember something. Left-handed hitting does not do well. It does not do well at all in St. Louis. And he still did pretty darn good. Okay? So with that being said, I don't hate the idea of Lars Nootbaar. They were talking about him a lot. And first of all, the Braves are going to love him, because one of the things that the fans do when Nootbaar comes to the plate is something that fans have been doing for decades, but it's still a thing. Because his last name is Nootbaar, they all go, Noot! So it sounds like a boo, right? That's been going on for years in football, baseball, everything. But Nootbaar is a power-hitting right fielder that could slide in to the DH role for Atlanta. I'd be here for it. I'd rather take that than have Marcell Ozuna come back, and nothing against Marcell, but you can't put him anywhere defensively, and his offense is not going to be that much better, even if it's better than Lars Nootbaar. So that's why I would be okay with it. By the way, they're talking about moving. I think there was 4 players mentioned with the Cardinals that I saw. They were talking about Nootbaar. They were talking about Donovan, who by the way is a utility. If he's just like Dubon, he can play all over. So you would really have some options. Donovan I'd be ecstatic, because you could play him anywhere, just like Dubon. And remember, he's a left-handed bat, so you could do all kinds of things with those guys. And they would be guys. Donovan's a guy that you could put towards the top of the lineup. For folks who haven't followed him, he's a guy you can put towards the top of the lineup, gets on base a ton, and you can just keep the line moving, right? At that point, forget what the hell I just said on that whole lineup card. I'm putting Donovan, depending on the matchup, he's either going to be my number 2 guy, or he's going to be right there in the 5th, 6th slot. Because I don't know how far I want to slide down Profar, but on certain pitching matchups, you're going to want you could put Profar lower in the lineup or just give him the day off altogether. But looking at all the teams that are out there, the Cardinals are about to drop a whole. So I told you about Newbar, I told you about Donovan. I just mentioned Nolan Arenado, who has nothing to do with the Braves. I mean, the Braves are not going. Where the hell would he play? The other guy that they have out there on the trade market is Contreras. Now, remember, he signed with St. Louis with the idea that he was going to be a catcher, and then they've kind of elbowed him out of that. Now, he is basically turned into a first base catcher type. He's not an option for Atlanta, but that's a name to keep an eye out on, because any of these guys that sign or are traded directly directly affect the next move in the Major League Baseball, either trade or free agent signings. Because the Cardinals are not selling these guys off to be aggressive in the free agent market. I'll just give you, for instance, what if Contreras goes and gets traded? We'll say the Phillies, right? What if they do that? What if they send the Phillies, send him to the Phillies? Then all of a sudden, that frees up JT Realmuto, because there's been a lot of talk of that his time may have come. I'm getting a flash of we're losing power. I don't know what the hell just happened, but it just flashed. Y'all just saw the lights flicker. I may lose the internet, and if I do, we'll bid you adieu. I'm keeping an eye on it. We're supposed to have a backup system, but I don't know how this will play out. Typically, when it blinks like that, we could lose you. The show's we're not going to keep you around much longer anyways, but I just want to let you know, if you see me go blurp, then that's it. Tonight, by the way, I do want to remind you, 6 p.m., we're doing the Once Upon a Pastime series. We're going over all of the guys that are up for the MLB or the National Baseball Hall of Fame Veterans Committee. They are voting on it Sunday night. They're supposed to release it. And Dale Murphy is on that ballot. A bunch of other guys, Roger Clemens, Barry Bonds, a bunch of guys that you can make arguments for and against. They're all on this ballot. So it's going to be a very interesting ballot, because a lot of times when these veteran committees come in, I don't see maybe 2 or 3 guys that I would vote for. You could make a lot of arguments, and some of them, though, I may not agree with, and I'll lay it out tonight. Other people are digging in and saying, put Don Mattingly in there. Put, if you look at the numbers of Bonds and Clemens, folks want him in. Other folks don't want him in because of the cheating. Same thing to do with Gary Sheffield. All these names are on. I hope you're right, John, but we'll go over it tonight. Going to lay out the why I'm going to lay out why I think a guy may or may not get in. I'm also going to lay out why he may get in, even though I don't agree with it. The question is, because you only have so many votes to go around, you need 75% of the votes. So there's 16 guys in the committee. 12 of them have to vote for you. But you start looking at all these guys, they're going to run out of votes. They just are. But it is easily it's overdue. Let me see. Let's hit the if y'all got any questions or comments, go ahead and file them in there. I'm going to go ahead and hit some of the bigger names that are out there on the free agent market. When you look at the catcher position, by the way, JT Realmuto, you may not realize it, he is a free agent, and there's just talk that the Philly's going to move on from him. They didn't even give him a qualifying offer, because not a lot of folks want to pay a catcher $22 million. Heck, he probably would have picked it up if they would have given it to him. And you could only put so many qualifying offers out, so that's got a lot to do with it, and they want to make sure that they put it out on Kyle Schwarber. But on the catcher position, I feel like that the big name that is still out there, and I still think that he is viable, is JT Realmuto. But you do have Christian Vasquez. He's one of those guys that's a great fit for someone. Let's say the Braves do trade Sean Murphy and say, hey, Drake, this team is yours. If that's the case, then, or let's say they say, Drake, you're going to be our designated hitter most days. To hell with going out and trying to find a DH. We're going to put you as the designated hitter. Then a Christian Vasquez becomes interesting, because it would really just be a guy coming in, giving Sean Murphy a day off from time to time. See who else do we have here on the catcher market that is still available? Some of these guys have gotten signed. I don't see anything that jumps off the board there, so we'll move to first base. But there are a number of options that the Braves could go with if they decide to put Drake Baldwin as their DH, and I could very much see that. I mean, defensively, he's kind of a disaster. Now, can they improve him? Okay. But last year, they were running on him left and right, if you remember. I just hate the idea of having Sean Murphy in your lineup every day offensively, because he's terrible. He's so up and down. But they are paying him like $16 a year, so you can't ignore the fact that he's taking a big chunk out of your salary, of your overall team salary. What do? You just sit him on the bench? That's not an option. And I think he's going to be a hard trade. You might find a couple of GMs out there that really like his metrics, but there's not enough dopes out there to pick him up, pay him that money on a season he just came off where he was horrific. But once again, we see this all the time with Sean Murphy. He gets scorching hot for about a week and a half, and then there's 4 or 5 weeks where he can't hit his weight. He couldn't hit water falling out of the boat. First base, Pete Alonso is the big name there. You do have Paul Goldschmidt. That's an interesting one out there. I don't know what Rhys Hoskins has left in the tank, but he is a free agent. Nathaniel Lowe, he is a free agent. And, not for nothing, Rowdy Tellez, so I think a lot of fans like, because everybody loves the fat guy, right? He hit 17 home runs last year. I mean, that's not nothing. Justin Turner, he's got to be about cooked. I mean, there's no way anyone. I'd be surprised if anyone signs him this year to anything. I think he's about to make one of those announcements that, hey, I'm gonna be retiring, and it's not really retiring. You're just getting asked to not come back. Second base. Now, these are their primary positions, right? Second base out there, there's not a ton. Gleyber Torres accepted the qualifying offer. So that kind of killed the second base market. Brendan Rodgers, a lot of guys like him. I think he's always been overrated. Shortstop position. There's Hassan Kim, there's Bo Bichette, the rest is a nightmare. What, you want to bring Orlando Arcia back? You want to bring Nick Ahmed in? You want to bring there's nothing out there. It's either Bo Bichette, or in this order, it's either Hassan Kim, Bo Bichette, or the Braves need to make a trade. Do not bring Orlando Arcia back. I don't need to see that. I don't need to see the reboot. Third base position, we talked about Bregman. It's a little deeper for some folks. You got Candelario out there. You've got is he considered third? Is that where they're putting him? No, I guess they're not. Those are the two big names. Christopher Morel is a free agent as well. Remember, he's had some some ups and downs. He's got great offensive upside, but other than that, he's not really anything to write home about. And then Miguel Andujar, still a very interesting play. He hit .318 last year, 10 home runs, 44 RBI. If the Braves could get him cheap, I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up in some kind of role free agent type deal. A designated hitter type deal. Harrison Bader is out there, 17 home runs, 277 average. I don't know if... Now, he declined his player option, but that's because it wasn't paying much. I don't know if that's someone that the Phillies are planning on bringing back or not, but he is interesting as far as the guy plays great defense, very good base runner, and he has a decent batting average and 17 home runs. I mean, that's not nothing. Most teams would love to put that in center or left field. Cody Bellinger, we talked about him. He's going to be looking for high dollar. I think he probably returns as a Yankee, but we'll see what happens. And then other guys that are still out there in the outfield, we've got, I feel like I've skated over a couple of guys. By the way, Braves legend Stuart Fairchild is out there. Randall Grichuk, Adolis Garcia. Now, look, Adolis Garcia has been great in the past, but he hit .227 with 19 home runs. What does he have left in the tank? Keep an eye on him. He's not exactly out of the realm of possibility for the Atlanta Braves as a DH, and much more athletic than Ozuna. You'd basically be getting a young version of Ozuna, and the guy stepped up in the big moment when he's in the postseason. But I don't know what he's expecting money-wise. And let's see who else we have left on here. Braves legend Jared Kelenic. Woo! Who's going to take the dive on him? I don't want anything to do with him, but who's going to take the dive? Starling Marte. At one point was a lethal bat. 279 home runs last year. Chas McCormick. I still can't believe this guy fell off. I still can't believe it. I thought he was going to be great like 3-4 years ago. He has absolutely fallen off. Same thing with MJ Melendez. He would be an interesting option if his numbers weren't so bad last year, because at one point, if you remember, he was coming up as a catcher. You could have signed him and forced him into a role as a hitter. He was a really good hitter a couple of years ago. He's batted .083, very small sample size, but we'll see where he ends up at. Oof. Eddie Rosario's out there, guys. Huh? Part 5. And I think that's about it. So as far as the starting pitchers, if you're looking at realistic, and we'll go ahead and wind this down, the starting pitchers that are out there, Chris Bassett has been rumored quite a bit for the Braves because he seems like the type of pitcher that the Braves would go out and get, a veteran who would probably be okay with a 2 or 3 year deal that you don't have to pay top dollar for, but he goes out. He always pitches a good 5 innings, usually 6. And he pitched well in the postseason for the Blue Jays, too. I think there's a definite interest of the Blue Jays still bringing him back, even with the signing of Cease. Walker Buehler. I mean, this guy at one point was looked upon as one of the best right-handers in the league. Last year, 10-7 with a 4.93 ERA. Never really got it together last year. It'll be interesting to see if he is actually brought into the fold of a serious contender, or is it time for Walker Buehler to transition to the bullpen role? Alex Cobb is out there. I can't believe that Mike Clevenger is still mulling around. Man, did he ruin his career by that. Remember that stunt that he pulled when he was in Cleveland? And they ended up getting mad at him and suspending him. He never seems to be quite right since then. I don't want anything to do with Patrick Corbin, but someone's is going to give him an offer, because though he was 7-11 with a 4.44 ERA last year, he actually pitched much better in the back half of the season. Another guy I have no desire to have, but he is out there. He's going to get some interest, is Nestor Cortez. I think he's a junk ball pitcher. I think it was a fluke that year because people were not getting used to his delivery. They figured him out, and he's getting crushed. See guys of real interest. Zach Gallen has a qualifying offer. That's why I think he has no chance of being in Atlanta. But someone's going to give him a shot. He is so overrated because he was really good about 3-4 years ago. But he didn't step up into the postseason when the Diamondbacks ended up in the World Series. He was flat as hell. He hasn't been worth the hoot since then. A guy that has been heavily rumored for the Braves, but what kind of deal does he want? Because he got out over expectations, went 10-4 with the 3.41 ERA of Boston. And remember, he's just a season removed from Tommy Johnson. I don't know if I want anything to do with him, but it wouldn't shock me if they end up. Tony Gonsolin, by the way, man, you talk about guys who have fallen far. He is out there. They still have Rich Hill, 85-year-old ass out there. How long has Rich Hill got to freaking play? He's out there on the free agent market. Merrill Kelly is an interesting one to me because 12-9, 3.52 ERA. He does not have a qualifying offer attached to him, and he is a solid number 2, number 3, maybe number 4 on bad days pitcher in your rotation. He goes into the Braves rotation. You're talking about an innings eater and a guy who's always going to keep you in the game. Had 167 strikeouts, too. He's not really what you think of as a strikeout guy, but I would love to see Merrill Kelly in a Braves uniform because I think he's going to be fairly affordable. Michael King, once again, I just don't think we're not going to put the qualifying offer on him. Michael Lorenzen, that guy is a swing man at best. He's a bullpen. Anytime he gets in the rotation, he gets annihilated. Same thing with Kenta Maeda nowadays. He's cooked. Tyler Mahle is an interesting one. 6-4 with a 2.18 ERA. He's extremely interesting as a guy who has figured it out later in his career, but how much is he wanting? And we'll wrap this up with, let's see if there's any other names. Jordan Montgomery. I could see him taking a 1-year prove-it deal to try to get back to where he was. But he was a disaster last year. Hasn't officially announced it, but Charlie Morton is out there. And I thought, there's Sagana. Sagana's still out there on the free agent market. He's interesting. We talked about Ranger Suarez. I don't think it happens because of the qualifying offer along with Framber Valdez, but they are very, very interesting. So there you go. That's it. I'm about cooked. Talking for 2.5 hours. First hours with the football show if you're just joining us. Anyone's got any questions or comments, jump in now. If not, we will see you tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern. The Once Upon a Pastime, but we're actually going over the careers of Dale Murphy and the other guys who were up for the vote. And Dale Murphy's over. Look, they mention it. He's the only player in the 1980s that are top 13 in WAR that is not in the Hall of Fame. It's overdue. When you think of Major League Baseball in the 1980s, one of the first words that comes out of your mouth, whether you're a Braves fan or not, is Dale Murphy. But we'll hit up that, and we'll talk to you about why some of these other guys do not belong in, and where some of them it's going to come down to votes. It's going to come to how many votes can go this way and that way, and that's why when they put guys on that are in the and the big question mark of it is the steroid era, right? It really makes you wonder, is it right to put them in the same ballot because they're taking away from the other guys? Anyways, we'll talk to you about that at 6 p.m. and see you on the Once Upon a Pastime Put Dale Murphy in. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. We're back tomorrow with another show. Well, unless we're fired, we'll talk to you then. Goodbye, sweetheart. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Guys and gals, it's time to go. We'll see you on the next show.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
It's closing time, y'all. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Have a great one. On your way out, please like and subscribe. And don't forget to tip your favorite bartender. We'll see you. I'm Mac McGee, signing off for Braves Country Radio.